Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Podcast listeners, Al Martin here. I am with the Chief Operating Officer of IBM Infrastructure and General Manager of IBM Systems, Barry Baker. First off, I should say you should be in baseball or something. Maybe, were you ever in baseball? I mean, that's like the perfect name for Barry Baker up to plate.
F1.
F1, there you go. Anyway, the scope that Barry has is IBM Z, IBM Power, IBM Storage, IBM Cloud, IBM Technology, Lifecycle Services, IBM Supply Chain, Advanced Chip Packaging. He is the guest that runs the machines that run the world, if you will. I would say this, even to add, if you're a bank and you're processing a transaction, it'll never go down. Barry's the guy that's behind all the success that you're having. Most recently, he's helped bring the IBM Spire accelerator to the market. This is an on-chip AI accelerator built for generative and agentic AI workloads at enterprise scale. On and on. I'm going to pause because I want you to introduce yourself. I appreciate it. We've been trying to get this loaded for a long time, so I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well, Al, thank you for having me. I know we've been trying to get this on the calendar, and it's been, I think, my calendar that's been the problem. So IBM is keeping me busy, and I'm really glad to be here.
It's all good. It's all good. Hey, I've got the questions loaded for you, though, man. I hope you're ready. I'm ready. All right. Well, before we do, the first question is going to be, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about where you came from. How'd you end up in the position that you're in? What training you had to get you there? Just give us the overview.
By training, I'm a computer engineer, undergrad and grad. Really started out as a software developer at IBM about 26-ish years ago, working on the platform that everybody was telling me was not going to be around, and that was IBM Z. And so I was a software engineer working in low-level operating system development and getting to work with some of our largest clients. And from there, really kind of I found myself getting into a lot of discussions with senior architects about what could we build, and I would always be gravitating towards wanting to have a conversation about what should we build. And so from there, I really kind of moved after about 8 or 9 years of doing software engineering and software development really at the low level of the stack. I really started to move into product management and product leadership. Did a couple of various assignments across the company working on the technology team. I did a stint in marketing, which is interesting for somebody with an engineering mindset and a lot of like that sort of thinking, to go and live a year and a half over in corporate marketing and help and work on that and figure that out was interesting. Yeah. And then moved into larger leadership roles, helping to transform parts of the portfolio, whether it was in software, then back in Mainframe and IBM Z. And for the last 3.5 years, I was asked to take on a COO role, which is really all about how we drive strategy, execution, and operations across 5 really distinct business units that we were trying to bring together under one umbrella called infrastructure. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3-4 years. And recently they moved and reorganized, so all of the hardware brands are now under me as well. So I got probably one of the coolest jobs in the industry. I get to work with engineers working all the way down at the bottom of the stack on silicon and all the way up to software development and systems management software, and working on cool things like Spire and helping our clients adopt AI and all that. So hopefully,
what do you like best right now? What's the thing that's challenging you most? What do you like best?
What challenges me the most is actually really trying to find the intersection point between hardware, software, and deciding what do we need to go do and put in the bottom of the stack for acceleration reasons, and what do I need to be able to move faster in terms of responding to requirements, and that has to end up in the software stack. And where we get to draw that line, that's up to us. So like figuring out where we draw that line is really the challenge, but actually exactly what like my whole kind of mode of operation has been around for my 26 years in the industry. Hardware, software, co-creation, full stack integration, those sorts of thoughts that deliver differentiated outcomes. Like that's what gets me up every day.
And that's also your favorite part then? It's both what you're spending most of your time on and your favorite part? Yeah. Or let me ask it differently. You've got all those different responsibilities across systems. By the way, have you always been in systems on the technical side?
I was in IBM software for a period of time, because part of the group I was in was actually working on the mainframe, but it was actually in IBM software group. And then I spent a little bit of time in business analytics. So I've been around technology, hardware and software.
Yeah. And today, whether it's Z, it's Power, it's Storage, it's Cloud, Where do you spend most of your time?
Well, right now, because of the moment that happened and was thrust upon us a couple of weeks ago with the Claude announcement and COBOL, I've been spending a lot more of my time in Z recently. But I would say also the other area that spending a lot of time is storage, because it aligns so much with and it underpins what we're trying to go do from a data perspective to fuel AI. So like a lot of time in storage, a lot of time in Z. I can't let any of my children feel like I'm not paying attention. So
it's a dangerous question. I know it's a dangerous question.
Yeah.
I am so glad you mentioned that, because I told you I don't stay on a script or anything. We're just having a chat, and I'll start with that then. I actually looked back at it, and it was February 23rd. Anthropic, Claude Code comes out and say, we got this COBOL translator.
Yep.
And the market reaction through, I guess what's interpreted is an ability to modernize the mainframe, and I'm going to let you take it in just a minute, as you can imagine, caused our stock to fall 13%, over 13%, the largest single day drop in over 25 years.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I had to comment on it. I put an article out on LinkedIn as well. I did see your article as well. To me, it's endemic of a bigger issue. But let me pause for a second. What are your thoughts? What is your initial response?
Well, so my initial response was, in terms of leveraging generative AI to modernize and use the platform, was welcome to the party. We've kind of been doing this for 3+ years. We've had an offering out in the market that is doing just that. Generative AI, pointing it at your mainframe code base, but really actually helping our clients better understand the applications that are running, better understanding the interdependencies between those applications. So when they want to go implement that next new feature, they can go do it with a lot more confidence and test what really just needs to be tested. So my initial reaction before I really realized that we had to react was welcome. The next kind of point that I would go down and kind of talk a little bit about is the application code is just one piece of this puzzle, right? Going back to my opening comment on like what gets me up in the morning is that full stack integration. Well, just taking a piece of software and moving it to another platform and expecting you're going to get the same outcomes, that is just a fundamental like fallacy in I'd say the reaction to what Claude did, because what is really in the platform and what you run it on really actually determines most. The application code gives you the logic, the business flows, but the actual outcomes in terms of reliability, availability, scalability, is this thing up 24/7? That all comes from the platform. And so it was, the Claude announcement was really relatively like mute on that point, and was sort of like, yeah, we're just, move it to a different language and you can just run it in a public cloud. And it's like, wow, okay, that's, if you fell for that, you probably haven't really run an enterprise environment. Like, right? So we have a clear point of view about what it means to be modern on the platform. The platform is extremely modern, all the way down to what you mentioned at the start, like Spire accelerator for doing AI on a platform. Yeah, and you can do DevOps on the platform, and you can write Python on the platform, and you can plug it into your end-to-end hybrid cloud. Like all of that, like was kind of lost in the sauce, if you will. So yeah, I'll pause there, see if you have a reaction or.
No, I think, look, I had a visceral reaction to the whole thing, because I think it's absurd, to be quite honest with you. Look, and I think I can say this, but I work for IBM, so people would say I'm biased. That's fine. But I came, most of my career has been in software, but I am a huge Z fan. I'm a huge power fan. I just like good technology. Yeah. And the bottom line is, whether it's resilience, security, performance, scalability, 25 billion transactions a day, 8 nines of availability, you just don't get that with anything else. And first of all, modernization doesn't happen just on the code side, just because you can modernize via COBOL. I mean, if you were to split that system up and put it in the cloud, by example, and look, any client I've ever worked with that has tried to do it for the right reason, because they got a different thing, or they got they're trying to build a new application for purpose and they need it in the cloud for whatever reason, it always costs more money, because you got to split all the security up. Think about it. You got to split the security. You got to split up the resiliency, high availability that comes built into this box. And then you get this, this Anthropic blog. When I put that aside, I mean, it was just an offshoot, I think, of just where the market is. The market's freaking out over what AI could do, and they don't understand the implications. So as a result, they teach you in school that it's efficient market theory, and that may be true in the long term, but I think it's emotional market theory in the short term. And so I think that's what it was.
I think like a good example, to me, it kind of just got down to this point where it's like, well, underlying architectures matter at various levels in the stack. That is not going away. Actually, with NVIDIA and like AI, it's actually just proving the point that different architectures are better suited for different types of workloads. Even if you take a modern workload, some would consider a modern workload running in the cloud, like a MongoDB. Well, we have clients that have actually taken Mongo out of the cloud and put it onto an IBM Z, and the architecture is so aligned for high database intensive workloads that what they were able to do was they saw that like they were getting a 20-to-1 reduction in CPU ratios from moving from the public cloud to basically co-locating and putting this on a Z box. So that's a modern workload. Again, grew up in the cloud. Well, it's actually best fit on this platform because of those attributes that have been designed over the years. So, whether it's power in that architecture, our investment is in that vertical integration, and it delivers outsized outcomes when we stay anchored to a particular type of workload that we're focused on. And so, anyway.
I try to be balanced in the way I look at things.
Yep.
What I don't get about IBM, and I work at IBM, is I don't get why we're talking about modernizing Z. Because if you look at this, I don't like the word modernizing. I can see you laughing, so you got to respond. I don't get it. It's like we're perpetuating that notion, and it's like, because we're the long pole in the tent, so everybody's saying, oh, it's not modern or whatever the case may be. It'd be like saying, and I used this example, I think, on a previous podcast, it's like saying that the Tesla, we got to modernize the Tesla or the car or something. People don't say that kind of stuff. This is the most modern machinery in the world. Why do we use that terminology?
So I'm smiling because I'm on the same, you could have given the same exact pitch I gave to a bunch of people over the last few weeks on the need to get rid of this term. Like, I really just need to get it out. The one issue we have is a real one, is many in the industry, especially in the consulting industry, have defined mainframe modernization practices, whether that's IBM Consulting, whether it's Accenture, whether it's other SIs. So that's a naming thing that I'm not going to necessarily be able to change, but I've asked the team, we need to come up with a better way to talk about this. This is not about mainframe modernization. This is, frankly, it's about getting clients to adopt and use and kind of be current on the latest that they could be doing on the platform. And it's not modern. It's just it's a technology adoption curve issue and conversation, not the platform's not modern. You got to go buy the new one because that's the modern one. Like, anyway, I'm with you. I don't have an answer. I have asked others to start helping me think about it, including people outside of the company to help me think about that.
It sounds like we're aligned there. The second thing that bothers me, I think, is just that Anthropic has the ability right now, at this moment in time, to throw that out there and everybody listens. Meanwhile, we've had an assistant out there that, and I would challenge to the listeners, that's been better than what they're going to present because it already tackles like RPG code, COBOL, aligned with the mainframe for like 3 years. Yep. Yet they get the I don't know, the market reaction when we've had this for so long. I don't know. Maybe that's just a jealousy comment, I guess, because they.
I kind of went through all of like I guess, what is it? How many stages of grief it is when it happened. And I've totally flipped now. And a lot of us have flipped now. It's like, all right, this is actually a great opportunity for us to kind of use this and just turn it, right? Because the facts are the facts. I mean, I have asked. I said, was there a real client example in what Claude Code produced, or is there anything there? Like, I'm with you. I think you and I are aligned. I think it's a good opportunity, and it gives us an opportunity to reinforce the value prop of the platform and what you actually can be doing on it. So,
do you think there's implications on the consulting side? There's more things to worry about. What's your vantage point there?
I do think there are, and have always been, some things to worry about on this front. I actually think the risk is declining, like, meaning it's getting less of a worry. And not to say that I'm not spending a lot of time with consulting to make sure that they have the latest access to our technology, they really understand the platform, and then when they're out there engaging with clients, that they're kind of working through things in a pretty methodical way that says, let's look at your TCO, let's actually do some analysis, let's do some what if we did move something or did kind of refactor something in place, what does that actually mean? So like that all is happening. I think the way I would view it, though, is if I rewind the clock 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there were a lot more clients that were putting down and trying to do $50, $100 million transformation projects to move workload off platform and move things into a public cloud. I will tell you, we are seeing a lot less of that. One, not a lot of success in doing it. Two, opportunity cost. There is just the technical talent. They have so much technical talent, and they could either be having them go and try to recreate and move something off and recreate it on a different platform, or they could be using that technical talent to basically figure out how to go tackle and embed AI throughout their entire workflows and like build on top of what they have and just keep moving. Like, there's a real opportunity cost equation. I think the whole push around hybrid cloud is kind of played out as we think it was going to, right? Like, clients are actually going to have multiple platforms, heterogeneous technology stitched together across hybrid cloud and, made to work. So I see a lot less of it happening in terms of a threat. I see actually consulting starting to become much more of like a tip of a spear for deploying more and more of our technology in this regard, frankly. So again, not going to let the moment pass and never let a good crisis go to waste. So
that's what they say, right? I think there's a lot of truth to that. Hey, 2 comments to that. On the consulting side, I'm with you. I think just business will change ultimately. I will say this though, all I know is today. Yeah. And once again, another transformation in the industry, and I'm busier than I've ever been with AI. Because, agents just makes it, you just have more things to do. So at least today, there's no shortage of work. Now, maybe tomorrow there'll be some changes. But right now, man, all I can tell you is what's happening today.
I mean, my reaction is like, I feel like we're at the adoption, part of the adoption curve with AI, where there's so much learning going on. And I was looking at Copilot inside of Outlook. At the very bottom of it, did you notice what it says right underneath the, like, where you can actually chat with it? It pretty much says something along the lines of like, your responses may not be accurate. AI generated content may be incorrect, right? So here we have like probabilistic systems giving us help and giving us like really actually doing a lot for us, but they're probabilistic and we have to wrap around it all sorts of technology and other things and humans, and in some cases humans, to really actually make it really sing. And so I see no shortage of like work to be done to get this deployed and get this effective and all that. So I don't know if you have a reaction to that.
Yeah, that goes to say that, look, no matter what AI does or otherwise, and you said this at the beginning, governance, security, that is just going to elevate those different pieces, or you can't use it reliably. In fact, we're going through in the U.S. March Madness right now, which is the basketball tournament, as you probably know. And that's when this is being recorded. And to do my bracket, I went out there and, I said, give me the statistics of all the games, what underdogs I should put in place or put on my bracket. Anyway, when I go through it all, and at the end, the bracket again, they had like University of Houston playing Florida. I said, for the championship. And I said, they're in the same bracket. It can't happen. I said, and so I'm like, and then, it's so nice. It says, oh, yes, of course. We got to switch that. I'm like, all right. Anyway, it was a stupid idea to use it anyway.
My son used ChatGPT to help him with his bracket. He's pretty happy so far, but I think it was an iterative use, not a one shot. Give me a bracket.
Yeah. Anyway, it misled me. Anyway, the move to cloud, I got to comment on that. The interesting thing right now is I totally agree with you. I do find it difficult. I meet with a lot of clients. When I meet with the government clients, typically, and I know I'm going to tick somebody off that's a government client, but stick with me on this, is that a lot of times they're still talking about move to cloud, which, okay, if that's what they want to do. And sometimes cloud's the right answer. It depends on the use case we're talking about. Right. But on the other hand, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to, I listen to their requirements, but then inevitably I want to be open and honest with them. Look, they could skip ahead if they wanted to, and that many are moving back or going sovereign based on everything that's happened. So they have control of their systems, their data, their applications. It's almost like you can save yourself the trouble, given what I'm seeing in the larger part of the industry right now. Why would you do that? By the way, everything's hybrid. When you don't have to move data, why move data anymore? Do you find yourself in those same discussions, and how do you handle them?
Yeah, and I find that some of the government clients that I get to interact with, the way I kind of put it in my brain is at times they still have that cloud first or cloud, like move to cloud motion in their minds. I think part of it is because they also tend to operate under more constraints than some of the other clients that I spend a lot of time with. I will typically ask those clients that are government if they're kind of really in that motion. They tend to also be clients who aren't hiring. Their budgets are pretty constrained. A lot of that conversation unravels a bit because they start to realize really quickly that even if I wanted to, and even if they wanted to make a move like that, they would likely end up needing and having to spend significantly more in this constrained environment than they operate in than if they just actually incrementally increase their staff to then go after and solve and tackle a new problem. Like there's a little bit of a challenge that I see in that, like a lot of these clients have just, I would use the word atrophy, or like they were told we're moving off.
Right.
And so they divested across a number of dimensions. They divested across their talent. They divested across staying current on like what actually can I do in these environments and with these platforms. And so those tend to be a different, like, okay, how do I unlock that? How do I kind of help them kind of take the next step forward? That's different than a bank who's on the, like, trying to be current, trying to use the platform for what they can, but they also have a cloud smart strategy, if you will. Like some things will be in the cloud and some are going to be on-prem because of sovereign and some for regulatory. So each of them are a little bit different, but I feel like there are ways to navigate the conversation around overall business value, overall TCO, and try to find the path to move forward.
I do find it tough being an IBMer in those conversations. Usually I handle it through just continue to ask questions and trying to learn and then let them come to the same or the right conclusion for them. But because at the end of the day, if I tell them, hey, why are you moving, particularly off of mainframe, they can say, oh, that's the IBM guy, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is we'll make a ton of money if they want to move and we help them move. I mean, but they're going to spend more money. I have never met a situation, honestly, Barry, where they didn't spend more money in the end.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not just saying that every time, because like I said, you got to split all those things up, all those different areas of functionality, security, resiliency up for different solutions typically cost more money.
Agreed.
And then you over provision. Anyway, let me pivot a little bit. So we've been talking about a little bit AI, and everybody's obviously talking about AI. I've been talking about it probably 2 years now on these the podcasts. If we don't talk about it, it's like in every podcast. Even when I'm bringing my coach online or something, we got to talk about AI. Anyway, we've got chatbots, we got co-pilots, we've got agents. You are working to build AI into the infrastructure itself.
Yep.
So my question is why does that matter?
Why are you doing that? Why are
you doing that? What the hell are you doing over there?
So it really comes down to architecture matters. Like where you run workload matters, and how you solve a problem across a technology stack really makes it either a usable technology or not. And I'll do this by like 2 examples. One is a real in my sphere and what we work on. Think about a credit card company processing credit card authorizations and trying to do fraud detection. Or we developed Tellum 1 and then Tellum 2 and Spire for accelerating AI workloads. That credit card processor was using an off-board solution for fraud detection. So in the context of a transaction was coming into the environment, it would hold that transaction, it would go off the platform to a off-platform stack of software and hardware and GPUs to go and actually say, hey, here are the characteristics of this transaction that came in. Should I be authorizing this or not? Mm-hmm. So that alone has just a latency issue. And so when these transactions that are coming in from an authorization perspective, the system is handling 40, 50,000 transactions a second, holding the resource to go off the platform to ask a question of the fraud detection solution to then come back, basically is not acceptable for all transactions. So what that major credit card company was doing was saying, well, if it hits a certain clip level of value, then those I'll shunt off and go do that analysis and come back. That is a very real challenge and real problem that Spire and Tellum 2 has just eliminated for that bank, for that credit card processor. They are now able to run those transactions, every transaction, through those fraud detection models running locally in the mainframe in IBM Z, in the context of that transaction and impacting it with a zero SLA impact. So these transactions are happening in the tens of milliseconds, and we're talking about it actually being able to process that fraud detection in under a millisecond. So that then opens up the aperture really dramatically to other use cases on the platform. They're now able to do that for every transaction. Where you kind of put your AI processing kind of does matter. Like if you can get all your data somewhere else and kind of put it there, and you want to do AI processing next to that data, that's great. Well, in the scope of actual like high volume transaction processing, that's not really an option. You don't move the data around, like you just can't do it. So I think that's like a real world example that help makes it a little bit real for you. Maybe Al, I don't know if that resonated.
It does resonate, but let me ask you this for the listeners that are unaware of what the IBM Spire accelerator really is. What problem does Spire solve that a GPU cluster doesn't?
So I would say it this way: the Spire is a scalpel to solve a very specific set of LLM use cases that are targeted for and very kind of, I would say, tailored for business use cases. A large language model frontier model running on a big cluster of GPUs is sort of like the person you want to go and ask any question to. Well, you're not going to ask a question about your March Madness bracket to a Spire card. Help me come up with my March Madness bracket. That's not the question you're going to ask. You're going to run some very specific models, like whether they're BERT models or whether they're some of the Minstrel models and Granite models for very specific use cases. And it's just a different architecture from a GPU, which primarily GPUs are built for training. And yes, you can also do inferencing on it. Spire card is entirely built for inferencing. Like it's not built for doing training. So you start to get into, once you start to make those decisions, the architecture just goes separate ways.
Outside of training, is there any limitations you would say Spire is not suited for? Inferencing I got, training is not for, it's for LLMs and for like GPU bank or whatever. What else?
I mean, in general, you view it as we can run all sorts of open source models on these cards, and some of them will perform better than others based on memory. Just remember, the Spire card is a 75 watt card. A GPU is 500, 600, 700 watts. So we're talking about models that are really for things like sensitive data tagging, for how do you do code analysis, how do you actually provide an IT operations advisor. So these are smaller models that are like 20 billion parameter models, not the much bigger ones. And those are the models that are trained for more specific use cases, is how I would think about it. We trip over ourselves because sometimes we say large language model and then we'll say SLM, like small language model, or a medium-sized language model. They're all LLMs. The number of parameters are different. And so we've got the ability to do things 8 billion, 20 billion. We can probably jam a bigger model in. It probably just won't perform as well.
That leads me to then the question of what clients or organizations are having success in executing AI from those that are stuck in AI purgatory or pilot purgatory. I mean, if you look at any McKinsey or Gartner report, it's going to say 80% plus of clients are not able to put whatever AI solution they have in production.
Yep.
What's the differentiation and success that you've seen?
So I think there's a couple of dimensions we can talk about on this one. I do think if I go back to the case of the credit card company, they were already sort of using like a probabilistic system for doing fraud detection. So when they wanted to go use this in the context of that workload, meaning what we delivered with Spire, they already had the guardrails and the infrastructure and how do I make this more deterministic already set up, right? Like you would get the text alert saying, oh, did you just mean to do that card swipe? Like they had that infrastructure in place. I think the biggest obstacle I'm seeing is that organizational capability to manage and govern an AI deployment, especially in a key and critical like workflow that runs the business. I think there's maturity that needs to get built there. The second to me is here's a thought, and I definitely want your reaction. Based on what I'm seeing and hearing, I think there is a top-down push for every company to be thinking about how do you actually use and deploy AI, and do so to either drive revenue or drive bottom line improvements. But I think you and I know not all clients are kind of created equal or like on a similar point from a technology adoption perspective. We will run into regularly clients that are early adopters. They know they're willing to like go through the paper cuts and get through that and like work with us on things like that and work at being the first with a technology. Then there's a whole mass of like the early majority and the late majority that they're looking for a polished product that drops in place and just drop and go and run. And I feel like we are interacting with all of these clients in these different modes of operating at the same time because of the top-down push. You all shall use AI now to change your jobs and improve. And I don't think all of the organizations are ready for it, given where we are on the maturity curve.
I think it's probably true. Yeah, no, I think the boards are definitely pushing it. They want to see where their companies, large or small, are implementing AI. My recommendation isn't exactly profound, but I think it still holds to this day. No matter how big you are or how small, it's always going to be around some kind of ROI.
Yep.
But you can have huge ambitions, but you got to break that up into little pieces that you can chew. Because you'll see success and you can build on that success. The biggest, and this goes for large and small alike, I think almost all, based on their situation, bite off more than they can chew, and then they're not successful because they're trying to go to Mars, and when maybe you just start by getting out of the atmosphere first,
get to the moon,
and then going to the moon, because then you'll see ROI. You can go to your board with that.
Right.
And say, look, we're starting off small. This is the first sliver of a 50-point project. And then they see the ROI, and I think you'll get that groundswell. That's what I've seen is the most successful, but for both sides, small and large.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've had some success at kind of enabling the teams with some technology and tools, be it Watson X and Watson X Orchestrate, and kind of creating an environment for them to go play and try. And we've got some real solid ROI out of many of those, but that's a motion we're, I think, a little bit more familiar with than some of our clients. And I'm not saying we're perfect at it. You, Al, probably know as good as I that we're not, but we've seen it work and know that there's a path forward for doing it and more broadly in other workflows, and whether it's IT, whether it's HR, in the supply chain, we're extensive users. And the first use case we did in the supply chain, Al, was such an interesting one for me because we had inventory management systems. We manage inventory and parts that go into our products. And also when they're out in the field, clients need those parts from a repair perspective. We have parts in many different inventory management systems. One of the first use cases that the team pulled together was, how do I take a younger new person in the supply chain team and enable them so that they can go find and do various supply chain queries across all those different data stores, natural language, and they would basically say what I'm looking for, and out would spit the SQL that would then go, and they would go use that and run it across all of the data stores to get back what they were looking for. Like, there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to figure out how to enable teams and empower them to go try and get going.
I think you also got to allow for a certain amount of either risks or mistakes. I just last week I spoke to the University of Missouri students, and they actually asked me, how do you manage through mistakes? And my first reaction was just like, look, given the speed, and I could make a case that we're at like 100x the speed that we've been in over the course of history, and with AI. And I do have like a table that would show that to folks. Yep. I did that as part of an article that I just published. Anyway, if you're not making a mistake, then you're not being aggressive enough. It's impossible. Now, you have to make the smart mistakes, if you will, or take the smart risks. So my question back to you then is, we're talking about the mainframe. This runs like 95% of all the banks in the world. Mainframe in fairness, is not known, nor should it be, for any mistakes.
Yeah.
So what's your advice on that kind of, how do you, if you're running that kind of business on the backbone of a mainframe, state of the art, it's certainly modern, folks, how do you take smart risks?
Yeah, and I chuckled a little bit because I was just with a client and having a discussion with them and one of their technical leaders, and they were asking me, hey, can we get the team to make this change way down in the bowels of some of the virtualization layers of the stack? And my reaction was, there are places I'll take risk in this stack, but I'm not taking risk down there. So it's about picking and choosing where it is you're going to do and take a risk. I think your point earlier that you made on actually breaking things down into chunks and things down into more manageable pieces actually helps you also on this smart risk point, because you can then start to really look at something and say, okay, if I can contain the blast radius of a risk, right, to a narrower scope, then I can let the teams run a little bit. I would say in the land of IBM Z, like I just said, I'm not going to take a lot of risks very, very low in the stack, maybe in the virtualization layer, because that could be basically, if we get that wrong and don't do that in the right way, can kind of mess up the modern economy. And so, but the other side of it is, as I move up the stack into the software and up into those layers, well, think about what IBM did with Watson Code Assistant for Z. Like, that project was started years ago, and we were basically the team. We asked the team, and our CEO asked the team, who came back and said, "Oh, it's probably going to take us 12 to 18 months to get the first product, the first version out the door." He came back and said, "Why not just try to get it out the door in 6 to 9 months and see what happens?" Because what is that risk, right? So to me, it's always about figuring out how do you reduce uncertainty and kind of chunk things up in a way that you can really control where the risks happen. And then it's all about like running the test, doing the thing, looking at the data, making a decision, and then moving forward based on risk. And so I think there are ways to do it even in something like the mainframe stack, and we look for more and more opportunities to do it. So
I think that's great. Hey, look, we're going to run out of time as usual. I knew this was going to be a great conversation, but so I'm going to try to do rapid fire if that's okay. So just quick answers.
So I shouldn't hammer on like I've been?
No, I think it's been great. I want to do that actually. I put several questions that I had selfishly.
Yeah. Okay.
And the problem is, to be honest with you, I don't know that these are rapid fire questions. So I don't think it's fair anyway, but I'm going to try to do my best here. So I'll just hit you with a few. What is Z, storage, power doing now or in the future that would surprise people?
I would say they are critical from an IBM perspective in terms of how we are going to accelerate AI adoption and AI usage in the context of some of the most mission critical workloads in the world. And they will be the platforms that actually underpin this governed, trusted AI adoption in the context of those workloads that run the modern economy.
So here's the next question. I know that you recently, I did some research stating that using identical servers for every AI task is like using a sledgehammer for a needle. My question to you is, how do you decide when you're going into infrastructure whether you need to use x86 or do you go to the cloud or I need Z or power? That's not a simple question.
Definitely. I mean, what you get to is really quickly is what I would refer to as fit for purpose, and certain workloads perform really well on certain platforms and certain workloads do not. But it's not just about the characteristics of an actual workload. It's, well, what is the reliability points I need for that? What is the security aspects of that? Oh, is this workload like highly bursty and does it like change really frequently in terms of its resource consumption? That is all kind of like just like more like computer science workload characteristics. Then you have to ask yourself, what's the data aspect here? Like, are we talking about data that's fairly static? Are we talking about data that is non-partitionable? And you get into all cap theorem and all this other sort of things about how do you manage data and how do you deal with like consistency, availability, and partitionability? And that underpins a lot of your decision making as well. A stateless microservice that is kind of like a catalog of data that doesn't change that frequently, put that on x86, like spin up those servers, let them tear down, that's all fine. If that data is perishable and really, really high value, well, you better think harder than where you're putting it.
If I am looking to roll out production grade AI, what are the couple 2 to 3, 1 to 3, whatever, non-negotiable upgrades that I need to make in my data center?
You will need to figure out a data strategy, like a storage strategy. And I would think hard about what you're doing, because let's be clear, if you're really going all in on AI and you're using LLMs, well, everybody's using LLMs and they're all built on the same data. So the real magic is going to be how you as an enterprise can take your data, your business data, and actually figure out how to inject that into your workflows, whether that's the data pipelines for RAG, whether that's content-aware storage for how do I actually pull out insights from the non-structured data that I own and I'm never going to give up to anybody else. I would say I'd anchor really heavily on your storage and what are you thinking about doing from a storage perspective. Oh, by the way, tape is people, I bring up the word tape and people are like, what's tape? Tape is going through the roof in terms of what people are trying to do with data, because they know they're trying to, like, for traceability reasons, as they build models and adjust things and as they do things, they're needing lots and lots of more storage for audit reasons. So tape is another thing you have to think about, your overall tiering of storage. So I would start with storage and go from there. We'll figure out how to get all the compute you need and get it in the right place around that storage.
I got to ask this last one. I'm sorry. Okay. I know we're running up against time, but this is one that I had. If you're a CTO and you're prioritizing Z infrastructure or any systems infrastructure for that matter in a post-quantum cryptography scenario, what should I be thinking?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Right now, you better start inventorying your actual cryptographic assets and what you use today, so that you can start on the journey to post-quantum crypto and kind of moving to those algorithms that are already available and have been available in multiple of our offerings, including IBM Z. I would get going now on the inventory, because the big threat that is out there right now is, even if quantum is a few years away, where we're going to have a real quantum system that can crack traditional cryptography, there are threats that are happening right now where it's harvest now steal the data now, and then I'm going to decrypt it later when I have that quantum. So this goes back to, like, my tape comment. People may be putting all that stuff encrypted on tape, and then they're going to come back 5 years from now, and then they're going to decrypt it with quantum. So get going now. Do the inventory and start building your plan such that you get to a mode where you're constantly using the latest from a PQC algorithm perspective and the latest capabilities to stay on that posture, as opposed to, like, backtracking. So hopefully I helped you out.
Yes, makes sense. I got a client discussion tomorrow. I'll use your lead. Hey, Last question. What do you do for fun?
I got 2 kids, so I'm usually doing something with my kids and my wife. And when I'm not with them, I'm trying to get better at golf, and usually working out and lifting and running and biking and, riding the motorcycle and those sorts of things. Yeah.
You ride a motorcycle? What kind of motorcycle?
I have a Moto Guzzi, Italian little motorcycle that I ride around.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're not afraid of the cars around you? I feel like there's a lot of fools.
Having taken my daughter through her and sitting through the training she went through as a new driver, I kind of said I walked out and I told my wife, I think I'm going to sell the bike. So
my oldest is a pharmacist, and she's like, Dad, if you know how many people are on drugs, you'll not want to be on the roads at all. That scares the hell out of me. You know what I mean?
Where I am on a good Sunday when no one's on the roads, it's nice to cruise around. And other than that, you're right. It's probably not the best thing for me to be doing.
What's your handicap? Golf handicap?
God, I got down to a 9. That's not bad. And I'm not there anymore, so I'm working on it.
Yeah, that's a golf. That's the definition of golf. We're working on it. Thank you for being here, Barry. It's good, man. I appreciate you.
All right.
Hey, listeners, hit us on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Get the people on that you want to hear about. Until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Later, guys.